When you call Jeff Tethny at 704-464-4544, go ahead and ask him if the TDT media was lined up right in front of him, who would be his first pick in church league softball?
Me.
Well, I'm going to tell you my first pick, and it's a man whose name starts with a K, and he has a pretty big beard. So I'd like to bring him on for this segment. It's Coach Kenny.
Hi, Kenny.
Kenny.
What's up, boys?
Now, Coach Bruce is out. I don't have the Bears fanatic I wish I had. I had somebody just a lot more cooled down and chilled out than the uppity up of Coach Bruce. But the Chicago Bears are without a head coach. The Dallas Cowboys are now without a head coach. So let's talk about that. There's vacancy in Dallas, and because there's vacancy in Chicago, there's room for the ex-Dallas head coach to move in.
Please.
Michael McCarthy is out. The Chicago Bears need an offensive guy, probably, to build up their Caleb Williams situation. What's Michael McCarthy in Chicago looking like to you, Kenny?
3 weeks ago, I would have said not a chance in hell. But as soon as As soon as the Patriots fired their coach, and I knew they were going after Vrabel, it became a real unfortunate reality for Bears fans that McCarthy's going to end up in Chicago. Not looking forward to it at all.
So you think it's a done deal?
I think it's 80% likely. I think it fits exactly the track record of what the Bears do, right? They end up interviewing too much, paralyzation by overthinking, and then they're going to end up with a guy that they think is a veteran coach that's kicked their ass before and defaults to the lowest common denominator, thinking that it's the right move when it's clearly not the right move. Yeah.
I mean, all I have to say is if you've watched him crash with Aaron Rodgers and crash with Dak Prescott, who both still had talent at that point, as much as I like to crap on Dak Prescott, and as much as I like to, who knows about Aaron Rodgers these days, but it's very clear to me that McCarthy was the problem in those two situations. So you're like, yeah, let's go have him influence the number one overall pick from this year. That's a really good idea. It's really good.
Yeah, I think that fits the Bears' track record 100%. It makes perfect sense for them to do it that way. Personally, I would have gone with a culture builder, whether that would have been, I don't know what they would have had to have done to get Vrabel. I know Jack's going to hate this opinion, but why not trade for Mike Tomlin out of Pittsburgh, or try and do something completely different? You need to break this terrible spell that the Bears have gone through over the past, 30+ years, ever since they fired Ditka, which disagreed with management, was a fiery personality, did things his way. It's been one failure after another, whether it's head coach, which all of them have failed except Lovie Smith for a few seasons, or failed quarterbacks, which they essentially have all been a mistake. I mean, Jay Cutler's kind of an okay idea when history reflects on it, but at the end of the day, he didn't do anything for this team. He didn't propel them to where we thought we would be. So yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible situation.
I think you have to keep an open mind, Kenny, because Michael McCarthy's resume isn't that bad. I mean, he went 12-5 3 years in a row. He put his team in a position to win games. Was it his fault that they didn't win those games? Can you blame McCarthy?
He's not going to have somebody like Jerry Jones who will spend all that money for him in Chicago, though.
No, and it's probably a more dysfunctional front office in Chicago than it is in Dallas somehow, because Jerry Jones runs the entire show. But yeah, I don't see Mike McCarthy being the answer. He may be an answer for some team. He may have been an answer 5 years, 10 years ago even. But right now, looking at the state of the Bears, what they need in terms of leadership, I don't think McCarthy's the guy. I really don't. I think he might be a stopgap. He may be able, if he goes to Chicago, he may be able to produce a couple of decent seasons, but that's going to rely entirely on who he brings in as coordinators. And chances are he'll bring offensive coordinator that'll be gone within a season or two because he will have worked wonders with Caleb, and he'll be gone. It's. I don't think it's a good situation at all.
It's actually a great point. Like, there's just not going to be any consistency there. That's what you need. Is you need somebody, like a Matt LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay that's going to be there for like a decade. And Mike McCarthy is not going to be there for a decade. He's just not.
Right. He's going to be a 3-season coach. Unless the Bears can magically turn things around, which they can't. I don't. All talking heads in Chicago think that, the roster is solid. We just need a couple of things in the front office and a couple of things on the sidelines to make things work. But it's not there. It's just not cohesive enough. That you need consistency and accountability. And the Bears are not that. They're anything but that. They're a dysfunctional franchise right now. I think the owners need to sell. You need a firebrand at head coach, somebody who's going to, bite kneecaps, so to speak. And get the players and personnel in line with what the culture that you want to develop is. Mike McCarthy isn't necessarily a culture builder. He took a good Packers team and did okay with them. He took a great Cowboys roster and did okay, but now is faltering with it. So it's there's a lot of names out there that I would rather have than McCarthy, but I would take McCarthy over some of these other unknowns. Some of these other unknowns that they have looked at. I don't even know the offensive coordinator from the Cardinals. No thanks. I'm not interested. Marcus Freeman, great coach out of Notre Dame, but is he the answer for your head coaching issue right now today in Chicago? Debatable. I don't think that he has proven himself as a head coach for the next level, so to speak.
Is it that they are disagreeing with Michael McCarthy as the answer, or is it much broader than that? We're disagreeing as an offensive guy as the answer, because what Bruce wants is a defensive guy to come in. But why bring a defensive guy when all of your mindset is, especially in Chicago, is build around Caleb Williams?
Well, so I think the problem is they need answers everywhere. And so you can make either argument that they need an offensive guy or they need a defensive guy. They need everything. And so obviously anybody in that room, in that decision-making room, can say, hey, I need an offensive guy, or no, I need a defensive guy. And I get it. But at the end of the day, you have to choose what you want. And I think this is what Kenny was talking about. You have to choose what you want your team identity to be, what you want your culture to be, what you want like the core values of your franchise to be. And is that we want to go score a lot of points. That's what the Cowboys do. We want to be flashy. We want a lot of turnovers. The Cowboys are never really going to build from the trenches. They'll have good offensive linemen. They'll have good pass rushers, but they're never going to be a run the ball 30 times in a game and, limit the opposing team to 80 yards rushing a game. That's just not who the Cowboys are going to be. Jerry Jones knows their identity. Like it or not, Jerry Jones knows how he wants to build a team. The Bears don't even know how they want to build a team. So when you don't know how you want to build it, Connor, it's very hard to decide who you want to help build it. That's just a matter of fact. So if you can't figure out what your identity is, if you can't figure out like what side of the ball you even want to focus on, yeah, I can see them disagreeing between Mike McCarthy and somebody else, or even the different philosophies of a Mike McCarthy, versus the Cardinals offensive coordinator. Those are two very different offenses. One is probably going to be much more comfortable for Caleb Williams, the Cardinals style, because that kind of comes from the Cliff Kingsbury tree that he's comfortable with. The Mike McCarthy style, he would not be comfortable with. He would not be comfortable in a traditional West Coast offense right now. And that's what you saw last year with Shane Waldron's system, because that's what that is. That's what he was running with Geno Smith. Great for Geno Smith, not great for Caleb Williams. And so there's way more than just, Mike McCarthy has done this. It's okay. What system is he running? Is that good for Caleb Williams? Is that good for the culture? Do they have the personnel right now to get it done? Do they even have enough resources this offseason to get to a point where they can feasibly run that for a year and not mess up Caleb Williams. And then you also have to look at, are we investing all of this on the offense when our defense crashed and burned without Matt Eberflus calling plays, which I never thought anybody would say, but it's true. So they thought their defense was all taken care of. Clearly it's not. So who are you going to get in there to run that defense? Like, there's so many questions. And I think that's what Kenny was saying, is it's not just the head coach. There are so many questions that have to be answered before there's any type of relevance again.
So
Yeah,
who do
100.
you bring in to help with Caleb Williams? And Ken, you can answer that. I just wanted to give that as a next thought. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. So to answer your question, I think that the Bears do this every time, right? If Matt Nagy was an offensive personality, wasn't working out, so now let's go with Eberflus, who's a defensive personality, and we're just going to keep flip flopping until we kind of figure it out. And it sucks that you have to go 40 years back before you get to like a coaching dynamic that worked. Was an offensive mind, and Buddy Ryan was the defensive mastermind behind that 46 defense, and it gelled together. Where it was almost you had two head coaches because Buddy Ryan would eventually go on to the Eagles. The point is that you need to find a compatible match, just like MJ was saying. Like, if you're going to go defense, I don't mind to go defensive minded again at head coach, but you need to find the right guy for offense. You need to figure out what is Caleb Williams about. How can we best navigate that situation? His personality, two, his abilities. Where are his abilities? And how can we progress him? And that starts in the trenches. You need to fix that offensive line. You need to fix your running back problem. And then Caleb Williams will start to flourish, I think, with the right mentorship. So go defense. I don't care. Good defensive head coach, but find the right guy on offense, whether that's trying to steal Kingsbury out of Washington, which I don't know if he would take another OC gig or not, but that could be an answer. Why not throw a ton of money at Lincoln Riley? Because Lincoln Riley was the quarterback whisperer for Caleb Williams at USC, and Williams followed him from Oklahoma. So, there's solutions, but are the Bears willing to take those necessary steps to get to it? Are they willing to spend the money? Are they willing to gamble? Because I think Poles is probably fearing for his job now. So is he going to gamble or is he going to take a safe bet? McCarthy might be the safe bet, but we got to roll the dice. Nothing else has worked. It's time to roll the dice a little bit.
And I do think that's part of the problem is Poles could probably save his job with a 10-7 season from McCarthy. And because that would be one of the best seasons the Bears have had in a decade. So if McCarthy could get them that, which he probably could, to be honest, that would probably save Poles' job, but it doesn't actually do anything. They're not going to win a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy at the helm. They might make a playoff appearance, but they're not going to go anywhere. And so I think that's what you're saying, Kenny, is like they have to come up with something unconventional. What they've been doing isn't working, so they have to think outside the box. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing over and over again, and they will keep being the sad stepchild of the NFC North.
100%. And that's, you look at, right, so you go back about 20 years now, you think about Lovie, right? Lovie's defensive-minded head coach, and the offense floundered. It was a terrible system. I forget who they had at offensive coordinator. I think it was Mike Martz for a little bit, but it's just the same dink and dunk. Here we're going to go with a screen on 3rd and 9. Like, a screen's going to magically work all of a sudden. You got to get guys past the marker in order to progress down the field. And it's the same tired routine every single time that we go through this. And the Bears used to be a marquee franchise in the NFL. Now it's a laughing stock because of all of the turmoil that they continuously put themselves through. And, meanwhile, you have the Steelers who have only had, 2 or 3 head coaches in their entire franchise history. You have other franchises like the Patriots who have come essentially out of nowhere and created a dynasty. The Chiefs figured it out early in the 60s and again here in 2020s. Like, it makes sense. You need to take a risk every once in a while, and the Bears just don't do it. They handcuff themselves and they fall by the wayside. We're essentially the laughing stock of the NFC, not just the North, the entire NFC.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur was a risk. Matt LaFleur was not a known commodity when the Packers hired him. He was the freaking Titans offensive coordinator, and everybody thought he got carried by Derrick Henry. Well, now you see what he can do with any running back, and kind of makes sense why Derrick Henry was so successful. Obviously, he's a beast, but you just never know until you get a guy at the helm and see what they can do to some extent. Oh my gosh, Jack.
Is it safe to say the Bears have really historically always taken the safest bet, so to speak? If they haven't rolled the dice yet, what's stopping them from doing that?
So I think over the past 30 plus years, I would say yes, they've taken the safer route, right? So again, Ditka was the firebrand kind of head coach. He was hot-headed. He said exactly what was on his mind, probably the worst times. He always got caught on camera flipping somebody off. It was those kind of things. And I don't think that scared the Bears organization, but I definitely think that the front office and the McCaskies, when they decided to make some changes, they didn't want exciting. They wanted safe. And that's one of the issues that I think all of the Chicago franchises have right now, is that they're playing it too safe. They would rather put, bums in seats, raise the ticket prices, get as much revenue from that as possible, knowing that if you put out a mediocre to just above mediocre program, oh, there it is. There's the thumbs up. You get a safe bet, you get revenue, you get money out of the deal. It's something that is indicative of Chicago sports, especially over the past my entire life, right? Almost 40 years of this. It is a continuing factor where all we do is all the front offices do is take the safe bet. Jerry Reinsdorf is 100% guilty of this, especially with the White Sox. You put together a mediocre to just above mediocre franchise or a roster, and then you can fill the seats a little bit, enough to cover your expenses, raise your ticket prices, and that's just how Chicago sports has worked. I can't think of one owner or one ownership group right now in Chicago that is dedicated, one, to the fans, which they should be, and two, to winning. Like, those should be your two primary focuses. And when I look at the White Sox, the Bulls, the Blackhawks now, and the Bears for over 35 years at this point, it's all about the bottom line. That doesn't get you anywhere, and it makes it easy to play it safe, right? And it makes it easy not to try and push for the championships.